We're here with Missy Young, who I like to refer to as the tech tigress because she is this incredible rock star of a human. She was in the C-suite over at Switch, which I spent time as one of their executives for a good chunk of my life. And I have so many fun sales stories with Missy where I was supporting her legally and she would bring in these big deals. And I want to touch on some of these stories, but what people don't know about you if they don't really know you, and maybe more so now they're starting to see this because you've now you're not as active. You're pretty much retired from Switch, but you're also a very, very vocal, powerful Christian.
Thanks.
And you're someone who cares a lot about Jesus Christ and that relationship. And I love that about you. It's one of my favorite things. You're a cancer survivor.
I am.
Yeah, well, but you have an incredible husband.
I do. He's amazing.
He's also a
He's
rock
my
star.
favorite.
Yeah, and I would never pick a fight with him ever.
Smart.
Such a tough guy. And so you guys are just an incredible power duo, a dynamic duo of a couple. And I've always admired your focus and your drive and your clarity. And I'm just excited to chat with you today.
Thanks, Sam. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Always hanging out with you is always fun.
Well, thank you. You're so kind. So, and you, before we started, you were telling me about how you have this new venture you're engaged in.
Yeah.
And you were just at a prison last night doing...
So I was at one of the jails last night with the Metro team. We brought in a gospel choir to sing Christmas songs to the inmates. And so we walk around from unit to unit and they would sing different Christmas songs and it was magical. And the inmates who are, pretty tough guys.
Yeah.
Typically when I look at them, all I can see is scared little boys underneath the exterior. And they kind of let the toughness drop a little bit last night and participated and kind of got wrapped up into the magic of Christmas just a little bit, even though they're going to be spending it there behind bars.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that gives me chills. How did you decide to get involved with this? Because you're now running a group, and what's it called again? It's
Grit and Mercy.
Grit and
It's a
Mercy.
501c3 nonprofit.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so I got into working with inmates shortly after my oldest son was he accidentally shot and killed his best friend and was sentenced to 16 years in prison.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and that was all while I was fighting cancer. So it was a really rough time. And so shortly after that, I retired from Switch. And I started to notice that God had really done a number on my heart. Every time I would see anyone's mugshot on TV or on the internet, all I could think of was that was someone's baby. That was a child at once. And what happened to them? How did they get to this point where they ended up in prison? And all I could really see when I looked at them was my own child, my own son. And I realized what a gift that was. God had done for me what he does for us, because when you believe in Jesus, God doesn't see all the bad things you've ever done. He only sees his son in you.
Isn't that remarkable?
It's amazing. And so now I'm only seeing my son in the inmates.
Yeah.
And so I started trying to figure out how I could get involved, and I started teaching classes about therapy. I'm not a therapist, but we just use books on the bookshelf and go through them chapter by chapter. We use How to Do the Work, which is a great introduction to therapy by Dr. Nicole LaPera, and she goes by the holistic psychologist on social media. She's got millions of followers because this book is such a great education for people who've never had any experience with therapy, which most everybody behind bars hasn't. But it's sort of identifying what is your trauma, like what happened to you, and how is that potentially affecting the decisions that you make today. So many of them are in there because they made decisions where when they look back, they go, I don't even know why I did that.
Right.
And I always say, we're all lawbreakers. We just haven't all been caught.
That's so true.
And people say, no, that's not right. I go, well, did you ever work for tips? And yeah. Did you report every single dollar to the IRS? No, that's illegal.
Yeah.
You're
in jail.
Yeah, there's all different ways, but I always say we're all one stupid decision away from being right in there with them. So, and some of them are in there because they made stupid decisions. I have yet to meet one that I would call evil.
Yeah, wow.
They just traumatized. Now that doesn't excuse any of the crimes that they've committed, but it does explain how they got there and why they ended up like that.
I love that.
One of the guys I work with told me that all of his earliest memories are of his mother cooking meth. So he was born in a meth house, born into that life. And so from literally the first day he was born through age 8, that's all he knew. And his mother would tell him, don't worry, honey, we'll just stay here until the walls turn brown and then we'll move somewhere else.
Ugh.
And so he's breathing that in. He's being around meth addicts all the time. And then at age 8, she finally was caught and sent to prison, and he got put into a group home where he was repeatedly molested. So you go, well, of course he ended up addicted to meth and in prison. What other choice did he have? There was never a healthy adult in his life to come along and say, you know what, let's get you into a safe place. Let's get life figured out for you. There was nobody. So of course he ended up where he is. But society will now look at him like, oh, what a scumbag.
Yeah.
You go, no. He didn't have the same starting line that I did.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of where I take a different look at I have a different view of meritocracy. While I fully believe people should only have the jobs that they are qualified for, meritocracy makes a gigantic assumption that everyone's starting at the same starting line, and that is absolutely not true. Most of these people who are in jail and in prison did not start anywhere close to the same starting line that I did.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and so what? And you feel like you've had these greater advantages because of your parents? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was born into a stable 2-parent home. I was raised going to church. There was money for me to go to college.
Sure.
You know, I didn't have abusive alcoholic parents at all. You know, we had our problems, you know, we had our own dysfunctions, sure, but I was always safe. I was always cared for. I was always loved. I always knew where my next meal was coming from. And a lot of people who were in jail and prison, they did not have anything close to that kind of an upbringing.
Sure. Yeah, I hear that.
And what a really scary statistic is right now is that prisons can predict down the road how many beds they're going to need based on how many kids can read by 3rd grade.
And that is terrifying. My wife and I have studied that because we've been trying to break up the school district and change how education works. That's a very, very big problem.
It is. And so when my son was arrested, we had to hire an attorney, right, to defend him. And he was being accused of murder. And this was in the state of Arizona. We discovered that just for the retainer, just to get an attorney to sign on to defend a murder charge was $100,000. And I remember thinking at the time, what about all the other people who can't afford that? That's not fair. But I put it on a shelf because I was so upset, you know, and in the middle of the crisis. I'll think about that later. And I think about it now because, you know, there's a young girl in the women's prison. She's still a juvenile. She's 17. And when she was 14, she got into a fight with another girl. And the other girl ended up dying from an injury that she sustained. And so the judge up in Reno gave this poor girl, this 14-year-old girl with no prior record. Her brain isn't even fully developed yet. And she comes from an alcoholic and abusive home. She was suicidal. Gave this girl 20 to 50 years.
Holy cow.
All she had was a public defender.
Yeah.
You know, and you just go, it's so inconsistent. The verdicts, the sentences that get handed down. And sometimes I go to sentencings for inmates who are in my classes, and there's been a few occasions where their public defender doesn't even show up. And so I report them, but I would expect the judge to say, oh, this person's attorney's not here, well, we'll have to continue this until the attorney's here. But the judge instead says, well, is there any other attorney who can jump in? And so some other public defender randomly will jump in and take it, but doesn't know the history, doesn't know the deal that was negotiated, doesn't have any idea what's going on. And then the defendant gets the raw end of the deal.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and you couple that with what you said earlier about how you see Christ in every one of these people you're interacting with. It's just like, I mean, that's what the grace of God is, right? Is that he's like, hey, I'll put my life for yours. And so everybody needs that type of advocate, someone who jumps in and says, no, I'm going to help heal this process, or help heal this person.
Well, here's the thing. In Matthew 25, Jesus says, whatever you do for the least of these, you're doing for me. And whatever you don't do for the least of these, you are not doing for me.
So is that what fuels this desire? Because you're very passionate.
I am extremely passionate about it, but I also feel like if I don't do this work, like the very rocks will cry out. Like I am compelled to help these people. There's no other path for me during this season of my life. This is what God has laid on my heart, is that I have position and resources to affect change. And so I'm doing the best I can to do that.
I love that. Well, I feel it. I feel chills while you're talking about it. You're out seeking the one, like Christ talks about, going after that with that lost lamb or that lost sheep.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. So what have you learned in this process about how to help people come out of that darkness and out of that prison? Because oftentimes they might be in a man-made prison, but they also have their own personal prisons, right?
Well, Jesus said he came to set the prisoners free.
Amen to that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so however it is I can help them get freed from that, a lot of times it's just me telling them, you are more than the worst thing you've ever done. A lot of time they're not hearing that
Mm.
from the system, from the correctional officers, from anyone else in their lives. Sometime with the choir, some of the woman who leads the choir would ask some of the guys, "What's your favorite Christmas memory?" And at least 6 of them said, "I don't have one."
No favorite Christmas memory. Wow.
They had no good Christmases. And so you go, well, when you see that, when I see that, and I realize just exactly how fortunate I am as a human being to not have had that kind of a childhood. I say, okay, Lord, you blessed me, and I am grateful. But now I need to be a good steward of those blessings and turn around and help the people that God leads me to help.
Yeah.
So, I teach class in the jail to about 35 women, and I teach a class to the men in the jail, about 35 men. But on any given day, there's 3,500 inmates in the jail that I'm not working
10
with.
times that, or 100 times that.
Yeah. So they may not be ready. They're not, because the people who are in the program that I teach, they have applied to get in. They want the change. One of the women that I work with, Tiffany, she's amazing. This is her 7th time being incarcerated. And when she got arrested the 7th time, she said, I had this realization that this is hard. This life is exhausting. Like, there's got to be something better. I got to change. I got to fix this. I got to figure this out. And the first 6 times, though, she was not ready. But the 7th time, she gave her life to God.
Yeah.
And totally embraced all of the classes and program that were available in the jail.
Wow.
Then she got sent to prison, and now she's leading Bible studies. She's mentoring other women. She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But she had to get to the point where she was ready.
Yeah.
And so they're not all ready.
Mm.
So the people that I work with are the ones who have elected to say, I want the life change.
Mm.
And so I teach 2 different classes in the women's prison as well here in Vegas. And I'm looking forward to expanding to some of the men's prisons that are a bit north of town.
That's wonderful. And I love that you say that to people, that you say you are more than your worst mistake.
I don't want to be remembered for the worst things I've ever done, because I've made some mistakes.
Well, and I think that's the lie of shame, is that we're defined by our mistakes, and that we're alone, that we're totally isolated because of them. And I think there's so much power in this idea that we have amazing people like you that are looking for people to help, and that we also have this Savior who's there telling us, come back. I define you, not these experiences. I'm the one that's going to be able to help you get back up to heaven and be able to enjoy.
Well, one thing I've learned is that when I am walking in the purposes that God has for me, He opens the doors.
Yes.
I have experienced so much favor.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, I'm taking gospel choirs into the prisons and the jails, and they're letting me. It's amazing,
Yeah.
And so I've seen that as I step out in faith and say, okay, God, I don't know how this is going to get done, but I feel like this is what you want me to do.
Yeah.
He paves the way. He makes a way
Yeah.
when there seems to be no way. He is the way maker.
He is.
And I've seen this many times. But one of the really great conversations that I have with the inmates is helping them understand the difference between shame and guilt.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the difference?
No, it's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, so guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I am bad. And there's a big difference
Huge
in what
difference.
that does.
Yeah.
And shame is you punishing yourself. I heard a therapist that I know say shame is the only emotion we have that isn't beneficial to you.
Isn't that fascinating?
And every other emotion can be beneficial to you in various ways, but except for shame.
Well, and right in line with that, I think shame doesn't. I think all the other emotions come from God. Shame does not. And obviously we're learning how to handle them, right? But Adam and Eve, they eat the fruit in the Garden of Eden, and God shows up and they're like, Adam, what'd you do? And what's interesting is if you read the scriptures about it,
my wife gave it to me.
Yeah, he blames Eve. But what's interesting is Adam actually, he eats the fruit and he hears God's coming, and then Satan's like, hey, you should hide. It's Satan who
introduces shame.
Yeah, makes them afraid.
Yeah. I heard recently that's what they think the Adam's apple is. That bite got stuck in his throat when he blamed his wife.
I don't dispute that. And my wife is definitely the boss in my house. So there's no shame in that, right? Yeah, but so helping people come out of that shame, helping them feel connected and seen and heard, I think that's powerful stuff.
It is, and helping them understand really how their brain works. Like, what's the biology of that and the science behind that? A lot of them think I'll never be able to stay sober. I'm not going to be able to get clean. I'm not going to be able to do this.
Sure.
And I tell them, once you get sober, you enter into what scientists call this gray period, where, before you became addicted, your brain will produce what we call the happy chemicals, which is serotonin, dopamine, all those different things. But once you become addicted, your brain says, "Oh, you're taking care of that, so I don't need to produce those happy cells anymore. So you're taking care of it, so I'm going to shut that off." Once you become sober, it takes your brain 1 to 3 years to start reproducing those again.
Wow.
And so during that time, nothing is fun. Everything just seems sort of gray.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just bleh.
Yeah.
And then you go, what did I get sober for?
Yeah.
If this is what life is like sober, this is terrible. But helping them understand, no, this is normal. This is what your brain is going through. But what's really great is your brain is a miraculous organ that was designed by God to be able to rewire itself. And so if you stay sober and do the work of therapy, which is creating new pathways in your brain, you're helping it to rewire, you can heal your brain.
That's
And I tell them, I don't care how many drugs you've done or how much alcohol you've had or whatever's gone on. If you stay sober and do the work, you can absolutely heal your brain and you will start to feel happy again. You will start to feel things are fun again. You just have to get through the hardest part, which is the first 1 to 3 years. That's when most people give up.
I had never heard that piece. I knew that once you expose your brain to certain activities, it creates a new neural pathway, and the more you do it, it cements it. And that's remarkable because you're right, there is this path out. And it's amazing to me because I think some of those positive chemicals and those positive experiences, the most powerful ones come when we connect with other people.
Absolutely. We are wired for connection.
Yeah,
And the women get that. The women behind bars understand that very well.
sure.
The men, not so much.
Yeah.
Men are very suspicious of connection. They all need to remain looking like a tough guy in front of their peers.
Yeah.
And, I guarantee almost all men can complete the sentence. You're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. You may not have heard that growing up.
I didn't hear that.
Almost everyone in the men in the jail has heard that growing up.
Yeah,
You're going to
never
cry,
heard that.
I'll give you something to cry about, meaning put those emotions away. I don't want to see that. That means you're weak.
Yeah.
Right? Young men, boys are definitely told weakness is bad. Emotions are weakness. Right? Especially when you come from those kinds of environments where they are being raised by parents who never healed from their trauma. It's generational trauma.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so with that said, it's harder to get the guys to connect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
We get some in there that are capable of that, but it's hard for them.
They're guarded.
Yeah. It's just a different thing between men and women. Women are like, oh my gosh, please love me, connect with me, let's be best friends. It's so much easier with the women,
Yeah.
But there's also far fewer women in the correctional system than there are men.
I'm sure that's true.
Mhm.
And so how do you help a male prisoner open up and become vulnerable? How do you help him soften his heart?
Yeah, so I first have to prove to them that I'm trustworthy. So I show up when I say I'm going to show up, which is not the case with a lot of volunteers that go in there.
Sure.
I do what I say I'm going to do. I write letters of support for them to their judge, to say, hey, this is the kind of therapeutic work that they're doing. Please take this into consideration when you're evaluating the sentence. I advocate for them. There was one guy in my class who says, I was supposed to be released in January, and it's now August. And I don't know why I'm still here, and no one will tell me, and my public defender doesn't return my calls, and I don't know how to get out. And the correctional officers, they can't release me without an order. So I contacted the district attorney's office, and the next week he was out. But
wow, you're an angel.
But if I don't say anything, who do they go to?
No, you're right. They don't have anybody.
I have one woman in my class who's been awaiting trial for 10 years.
And
she's not the first one.
Gross deprivation.
She just got her discovery like a month ago.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so there's so many things that go on where any given day there's 3,500 people in that jail, and they're either there because they're awaiting trial or because they have a sentence of less than a year. So they're either getting out or they're going to prison.
Wow.
And so people sometimes fall through the cracks, It's a lot of people to continually process. And I'll give Metro credit. They actually do a really good job. I mean, I have no.
They care.
They do. They care a lot. I have no issues with Metro at all. I think they're doing great.
I agree with you on that. In fact, we had a guest who was with the Henderson Police Department, and he said you'd be surprised how many police officers, after they arrest someone, will try and counsel that person and help them awaken to what their choices are and how they have control. Which is alarming to me, but you're right. That the system, it sounds like, is erasing. It's dehumanizing people. It's erasing their
It's really tough because once they go into prison especially, then yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that in this country, we call it corrections.
Mm,
I think it should just be called punishment
mm,
because that's what's happening.
mm,
There's not a lot of inmates who come out of prison in this country better than they were when they went in.
mm.
And so the really alarming thing is that 90% of everyone who's incarcerated in prison is going to get out. Only 10% are lifers. So 90% are getting out and they're coming back to our communities worse than they were when they went in for the most part.
And we paid for it.
We paid for it. And we're paying, we as taxpayers are entrusting the correctional system to correct, but there's no corrections happening.
Do you think it's because the correctional system has been hijacked by people who are trying to make money off of it? Is that
In
kind of?
some cases, I mean, there are for-profit companies out there that run prisons, and I have a huge issue with that. CoreCivic and Geo each had revenues last year of $2 billion
So that's
each
disgusting.
off the back of inmates. So I can only assume that because they're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, that all decisions are made based on the stock price rather than the welfare of the inmates.
Yeah.
Right?
No, this is like Star Wars stuff.
But only 8%, as far as I know, of all the prisons out there are operated by for-profit companies. So the majority of them are run by the states or federal.
Which can be just as bad as a bloodthirsty for-profit.
One of the a handful of the prisons in Arizona have no air conditioning, like the one in Yuma, Arizona, one of the hottest places on earth. The rumor has it gets up to about 120 degrees inside the prison on a summer day, and summer in Yuma lasts 6 months. I mean, can you imagine the smell, all those men in that kind of heat all the time?
It's awful.
And recently, that prison got funding to retrofit some of the buildings with air conditioning units, which takes time from a construction perspective, but they did a news article about it. The comments on social media were so disturbing. People are going, well, prison's not supposed to be fun. I guess they shouldn't have committed crimes.
Mm.
Or my favorite, they're just animals. What do we care?
Wow. And they don't, that's because the person doesn't understand.
No, I always liken it to, have you ever gone to a restaurant with someone who's kind of abusive to the server?
Mm-hmm.
I go, well, you've never waited tables before, have you? Because if
Exactly.
you have, you would never treat a server like that. You know better. So if you haven't been personally touched by the prison system, if you or your family members have never had to deal with it, then you don't really have any sympathy for it. But what's interesting is some of the people who are making these comments, you go and look at their profile and this is, oh, I love Jesus and I go to church and
Yeah.
faith is my life. And, you're like, have you read the Bibles? Because your comment is certainly not pointing anyone towards Jesus.
No, he loves everyone, black, white, bond, free, male, female.
Yeah.
And the free and the in prison, he's coming after everybody. Yeah.
Well, here's the other disturbing thing. So the prison system uses racism to control the inmates. So, for instance, on my son's first day of prison, he was confronted by the leader of the white gang in prison because my son's white, and was told he needed to show his paperwork so they could know what he was convicted of. Because if it was any racially motivated crime against another white person, or if he was a child sex predator, they were going to smash him out of there, meaning he's leaving in an ambulance. And so my son said, no, I didn't do anything like that. Here. And he said, okay, great. He goes, you're in the clear. He goes, but just so you know, if there's a riot or a fight and something goes down and you don't step up and defend your white brothers, you will regret it. Wow. And so on our first visit, he's like, I think I'm in a gang. I mean, he's not that guy.
Yeah, but now he is.
He has to be to survive.
It's so crazy you said that. So I work at the temple on the other side, and there's a guy there from Hawaii who's 80. Mm-hmm. And he used to be over the commission in Hawaii. He was an attorney, and he was over the election commission. And the I don't remember his name, but the feds came and investigated what was going on, and they squeezed him because they wanted him to rat out some other Hawaiian politicians. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I'm not going to give up my membership in the church because I don't want to be excommunicated. And if I admit I did these things that they're saying I did, then I'll be convicted of a felony and I'm out. So he's like, it's more important for me to maintain my relationship with Christ than to not go to prison. So I'm going to prison. And he was in prison for 15 years. Wow. And he said that very same thing. He was like, there are racial gangs. And he's like, and if you rat out one of your fellow members, they'll beat the crap out of you. But he said, except for the Hawaiians.
Well,
he said the Hawaiians would forgive each other. Sorry, dude, I ratted you out, and I know I got you 25 more years, and they'd be like, it's okay, brother. Like, they forgive each other is what he said.
Okay. I read an interview, or I read a blog post by an former inmate who said he has seen white men come into prison without a racist bone in their bodies
And leave.
and leave with an 88 tattooed on their face, which is the sign for Heil Hitler. And then they take that new racism home
Yeah.
to their families and their kids.
And they implant it in their community.
Right, because
Terrible.
that's what they've learned. I'm only safe with people who look like me. My family is only made up of people who look like me.
Well, and I'm defined by my experiences, my skin color, as opposed to being defined by my relationship with
Right.
God. Yeah.
So one time when I went to visit my son, I noticed that there was another prison, like a very smaller one, a much smaller one close by. And I said, "What is that one a few hundred yards away? Is that like a women's prison yard?" He said, "No, that's for the Asians and the Pacific Islanders." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, they can't put them with the blacks, the whites, and the browns. It's too violent. So they have their own prison yard for that." And inside there, they're all made up into different factions, right? It's just because if the inmates are fighting each other, they won't band together against the institution.
The division is
So, yeah.
deflates the power.
But also, if they don't have to hire as many correction officers, it keeps the cost down.
Sure.
'Cause the gangs are running the prison.
Sure, that's crazy. Well, one of the things that he told me, and I think you'd resonate with this, he said that because he would just keep reading the Bible and he would just stay anchored. And he said that people would come up to him of all sorts of races all the time. Big guys, dangerous guys, and say, "What are you, some type of preacher?" And he said that many people told him he felt like he had a force field or like a bubble around him, and they'd come and their prison cells would be closer than this. And people would come up to him and say, "Can I just sit in your prison cell? Because I feel something here that I don't feel anywhere else." And it's because he knew who he was, regardless of the experience he was having. Right? And so how do you help instill that? I mean, you're obviously here to help these people transform their lives, get into a place where they can reacclimate into society with grit and mercy. But how do you help people gain that anchor where they're defined by something other than what they've done?
It's really hard. And so basically I look at it as it's not my job to save anyone. That's up to the Holy Spirit.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
My job is to plant a seed and water a seed and then plant another seed and water another seed and just keep going and keep getting that message in, because everything I'm telling them is the first time anyone said it to them in their entire lives. So I just have to keep repeating it. And so we'll do classes on anxiety. What is it? What is it when you have a panic attack? Like, the women are all about admitting that they've had panic attacks. The men, not so much. It's weak.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to look weak in front of the other guys.
Yeah.
But they've all had issues with anxiety. And so by talking about the biological concept behind what is anxiety, what does that mean is happening in your brain when you have anxiety?
Sure.
And, I say, "Anybody ever get sick to your stomach before court?" And they go, "Oh, yeah." I go, that's anxiety coming out in your body.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh." I'm like, "How else could it come out in your body?" And they're like, "Headache?" I go, "Yeah, well, how else? Sweaty palms? Yeah, totally. What if my heartbeat's going fast?" "Yep, that's absolutely like." And so helping with getting like what's physically happening to them, then you can talk more about the actual feelings behind it. And if they're not willing to share, I share my own stories from my own experiences with anxiety and mental health and so on, because I've had 1,000+ hours of therapy myself.
Sure.
So I have a lot of experiences to talk from. And when I share that and I'm vulnerable in that way, they feel more comfortable sharing as well. So it has a lot to do with how much they trust me.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like I'm realizing you're describing therapy as almost like you're learning how to use those muscles, how to understand the rules around your own emotions.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do a whole session on gaslighting. What is it? What does it sound like? And they're all, "Oh yeah, I've definitely had people gaslight me, either my girlfriend or my mother or my dad, whatever." But then I go, "Okay, now that we've talked about what it sounds like, how many of you can say, I think I have also been the perpetrator of gaslighting?" And then you kind of get it's okay, everybody does, but to normalize it.
Sure.
That's the key, is to normalize talking about these things.
Yeah.
And, if they want to be in my program, Grit and Mercy, they're going to do a lot of real therapy, so they will get an education from whether they want to go to 2-year program, 4-year program, they want to get their master's, whatever it is. But the whole time they're going through their educational program, they will be getting a therapist once a week. They will be meeting weekly with their own personal therapist They'll be doing neurofeedback 3 times a week, which is another incredible
My
modality.
kids have been doing that.
It's so good.
It's incredible.
And they'll have to go to AA or NA or Celebrate Recovery, whatever's offered in the prison they're in, as often as it's offered. And they have to get drug tested every other week.
Wow, that's great.
So if they do that successfully for a semester and get decent grades, we pay for another one. And so when they get close to graduating, let's say someone's getting a 4-year degree in hospitality at UNLV, best hospitality program in the world.
Sure.
I'm going to go start pounding the pavement on their behalf, saying I have a candidate who's about to get out of prison, but they also about to get a 4-year degree in hospitality. They've had 4 years of weekly therapy, 4 years of neurofeedback, 4 years of AA, 4 years of clean drug testing. I want you to commit to hire them. And I'm putting my own name behind them, saying I believe in them because of what they've done, the grit that they've shown in getting through this program. And then it's getting the community to restore them. That's the mercy part.
Sure.
Getting them to have a good job when they're finished so that they can be stable, pay taxes, stay sober, live a normal life instead of going back to crime. Because what happens right now when people get out of prison, no one wants to hire them because they have a record. No one wants to rent an apartment to them because they have a record. But at some point they've got to eat.
Yeah.
They have, backdated child support they owe, whatever the things are. And so at some point, if no one will hire them, they're going back to crime. And it could be my house next. It could be your house next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we need programs like this in order to truly reduce recidivism so that people, once you've gone to prison, you never go back.
For sure. And you're not transplanting the racism that we just talked about.
Right. But it has to be a combination of education and therapy, because I could help someone get 3 PhDs, but if they don't heal from their trauma, they're still going to go drink themselves to death.
Yeah, because they don't know how to
or
cope.
smoke crack or whatever their vice is.
Yeah.
And so it has to be both. It has to be a combination. And also there's a thing with inmates where they're kind of told, well, now that you have a record, the only thing you can do is a trade. You could only be a commercial truck driver, or maybe you can weld. Now, if that's your dream and you want to do that, phenomenal. But if not, well, what is your dream?
Yeah.
Yes, you might be somewhat restricted based on the things you got convicted of. Like if you got convicted of massive tax fraud, you probably shouldn't run an H&R Block.
No.
Right?
Right.
So some things you might be restricted from, but just like in the Garden of Eden, God said, just don't eat this from this tree.
You're just over here.
All the other trees are yours.
Yeah.
The options are practically endless that I've given you. And so let's figure out what that is. And so Tiffany, the woman I was telling you about, she wants to be a therapist. So we're going to get her all the way through her master's degree.
What a powerful therapist. She'll have so much compassion and empathy.
Think about the street cred she'll have as a former inmate,
Yeah, that's incredible.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do. What do you want to do? What do you think you're gifted at? What do you think you're talented at? Start thinking about that. Because I tell them, I don't believe that you are only relegated to doing manual labor. If that's what you want to do, great. But if it isn't, what is it that you want to do? What would make you happy? What would make you feel like you have purpose?
Yeah.
Let's figure that out and let's get you on that path.
Well, I think you're helping them unlock the God-given gifts they have that they came to earth with to go do something, right?
That's right. And I tell them that practically every class, that God loves you. How do I know? Because he sent me in here to tell you.
Yeah.
And he made you with a purpose. He created you with gifts and talents like he does for everybody.
So powerful.
You're not going to be the first one that didn't get any gifts.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
And so let's figure out what those things are, and then let's empower you to use them.
Okay, so I love this, and we could talk about this forever, but I want to talk about some of the gifts that you have.
Me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because clearly, you were one of the most effective salespeople I've ever met.
Thanks.
An incredible. You would give the tours at Switch, which is an incredible experience because you get to go see. You can list off all the companies you've negotiated with, and Sony and Amazon and Intel. And I always try and copy you, but you do it so much better. The amount of exposure you've had to these tech giants in the world is one of the reasons why I call you the tech tigress. Because I remember one time we were on a call. And some person we were negotiating with, some multi-million-dollar deal, started to be a little snippy with you, and I think we all noticed it was like they were dismissive, like you didn't know what you were talking about. And I think Alexis Machad and I were on the call, and I was like, Alexis, watch out, Missy's gonna come back, and you just like brought all this like intelligence and just dumped intelligence on them to a place where it shamed them, in a good way, in a healthy way. And humbled them, maybe is a better word. So were you always like that? Were you just someone who just like could wield these talents and gifts as a kid?
It's a great question. I I think part of it was while I was growing up, we moved a lot because my dad had a lot of different jobs, and some of it was in the military, and so I was the new kid a lot. And so I remember having some discussion with myself at one point, going, "Well, I can either always be the new kid with no friends, or I can be super outgoing and make friends everywhere I go."
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with the outgoing one.
I'm glad you did, because I like the outgoing.
Yeah. But I think so. I think it kind of started there.
Right.
And I noticed that I had the ability to be friends with all the groups instead of like, oh, I'm a member of this group or I'm a member of that group.
Yeah.
Because I also like to be involved in a whole bunch of things. So I was an athlete, and I was in theater, and I was student council, and did all the things. And so, yeah, I learned that way. And I also learned in my early days in tech that Mr. Rogers was right when he said, look for the helpers.
Yeah.
Because they're there. The vast majority of people are good and want to help you.
Yes.
So I tend to go into situations with this attitude of people are generally good and I like them. And if they are providing resistance, well, what's the best path? What's the best path forward to get what I want?
Yeah.
I want to get ink on this contract.
Sure.
So how am I going to articulate the reasons for why they're going to do exactly what I want them to do?
Yeah.
You know, we were negotiating. I think it was you, but we were negotiating with a very large amusement park and movie studio.
Sure.
And
can't imagine who that is.
yeah, and we always bill at the beginning of the month, and they said, well, we only want to be billed at the end of the month. If we're satisfied with all of your services over the previous month, then we'll pay our bill.
Wow.
And I said, great, then I want to go to one of your theme parks for a week. And at the end of the week, if I'm satisfied with the wait times on the rides and the ticket prices and the cleanliness and the food and the service, then I'll pay for my ticket. And they said, well, that's not how it works. And I said, I agree. I'm so glad that you do too. Moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, but how do you get to that point where you can get what you want without bludgeoning someone in the process, right? Which is I had to help you learn.
No, for sure.
Started.
No, I could be aggressive. I could be aggressive. Yeah.
Beginning.
Yeah, you used to call me, I think, release the baby.
Release the baby.
Yeah, from the grass. Yeah.
From the crudes.
Yeah, because I could definitely be aggressive.
I remember texting you while we were on a call. Sam, I still have to be friends with these people after this call.
And I'm so grateful. I know you and Chris Donnelly and some of the other people that we work with regularly. I remember coming to this process where I realized that there is more power in kindness. Mm-hmm. There is more power in compassion.
Yeah. Well, I told everybody, I want you to actually make friends with your clients.
Yeah.
Like actually make friends with them. Find out about their kids. Get to know them.
Yeah.
Learn about them. Become their friend. Because if this is just a business transaction, then we're treating people like they don't matter.
Man, I need to have you come speak to the law school students I teach. Because
I'll go talk to them.
They should hear that.
Yeah.
So I have so many stories I want to have. I mean, you have negotiated billions of dollars of deals over the year and done incredible things. But I do want to hit on a couple of stories because I just think they're fun to remember. And maybe you'll remember them differently. But I remember a time when I was a young, super eager attorney. Mm-hmm. And I didn't usually park close to you guys. I was in a different building. And I remember parking in your parking spot.
Oh,
do you remember this?
Yeah.
This is vulnerability. I don't mind telling this story.
Never park in my spot.
No, you had like this incredible Porsche and this really cool parking spot, and I was in this little dinky car, and I was in a hurry to go meet with people, and so I parked in your spot. And I remember you came up to me, holding your Porsche keys. Do you remember this?
No.
No? Uh-uh. You were like, "Here are my keys. Please bring them back to me when you've moved your car and my car back into my spot." I was like, "Don't mess with me."
I can't believe I let you drive my car.
Well, I was surprised too because I didn't know how to drive a Porsche. I was very careful with it. But to me, it was funny too because you didn't yell, you weren't angry. Mm-hmm. You were just like, "Here you go." And I will never forget that. You don't remember that?
No.
Oh man, because you just had this energy about you. You still do.
Jeff Bryce still won't park in my spot. I'm not even there anymore.
Yeah, well, that's smart. He's very smart. Yes, you might be coming back. So it must have been difficult for, maybe I'm assuming, I don't want to assume,
Go ahead.
But was it difficult for you to be as intelligent and capable and articulate as you are and a female in a predominantly male tech world?
No, I looked at it as a challenge.
Okay, well,
I love a good challenge.
okay.
When I first got into tech, I was hired by a woman who wanted to give other women a chance to get in. This was in Southern California back in the mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentored me for a couple of months, and then she quit because she got offered more money somewhere else. And she was replaced by a guy that the company hired who became my boss, who basically told me on his first day that women aren't engineers and you don't belong here. And
Wow.
and I'd never been told that before in my life. I didn't come from that kind of a home.
Well, and what an ignorant comment.
Well, I said, well, I have the same certifications that the other guys have. I went through the same training. And he said, you should be at home, sweetheart. And then I got mad. And I said, well, I'm not going anywhere. I have rent to pay and bills to pay. I need this job, so I'm not leaving. And he goes, we'll see. And I was like, okay. So he started giving me really scary assignments. Like in the middle of the night, you have to go and like Y2K upgrades, if you remember that whole.
Oh, yeah.
But he would send me down into Compton and Inglewood and Watts and just some of the most gang-ridden areas of LA. And you can't do the cutovers until like 2:00 in the morning. So it's right next to crack houses and just super crazy. And I remember always thinking, well, I might get shot, but I am not going to quit. Because that guy is not running me out here. I was like, death first.
Wow.
And so he couldn't get me to quit. So then he decided to try to make me fail so that he could fire me. So he would give me very complicated networks to install, multiple locations, these big companies, all this stuff. And so I started asking for help from the other techs. Hey, how does this work? How does this router work? How do you configure this firewall? And so I would go out to do these installs, and just out of trying to be a good engineer, I would tell the customer, hey, you got this router, but you didn't get this firewall. You're kind of still at risk for these types of attacks. If you want, I can tell them to add that on. So your name, they would say, yeah. And so upper management started to notice that every time I did an install, the client would buy more.
Wow.
And so that's how I got moved over into sales engineering. So the salespeople go find the business, and then I would architect the deal and get them to sign.
That's remarkable.
So I learned a lot through that. But I also learned that as a woman, you actually have tremendous power in a room full of men.
Mm.
I would always wait till everyone arrives for the meeting. And then I would wait like 5 minutes, and then I would go in. Mm. Because during that 5 minutes, all the guys in the room, whether they're from the same company or multiple companies, they've all figured out who's the alpha.
Yeah.
Who's the beta? Like where do we all fit on this totem pole?
Yeah.
And so they're everyone's comfortable with that. It's like a wolf pack. Y'all need to know your place. I get it.
Well, it's a natural thing.
That's right. That's right. But so then when I walk in, now all of that is all of a sudden off the table. And if you're smart as a woman, you will just immediately take control and lead from a place of grace and firmness. Mm. Hi guys, how you doing? Here's what we're going to do today. And then you just lead. But you don't have to be a bull in a china shop about it.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a chip on your shoulder about it.
Yeah.
Just lead. And do it with grace, but do it with firmness.
Yeah.
No, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to handle things.
You say with a smile.
Yeah. Well, I don't need to be mean about it.
No, and you were very good at it. I mean, I remember sitting in those rooms sometimes for tours where we would be with different clients and waiting for you to come in. And then your storytelling technique is very captivating. You always did a very good job telling the switch story. I mean, the best tour guide ever, right? You're just so good at that. But there was something about the energy you would bring into the room where people would know, oh, we got to act differently now because Missy's here. Like you were someone who would change the room instead of being changed by it.
Yeah. Well, I always say, if you're going to lead, you're setting the tone.
Yes.
So your mood and your mannerisms and how you talk to people and how you feel about the subject matter that you're talking about is going to affect and infect everyone in the room if you are a leader. Yeah. So you really have to be conscious of that. What kind of a tone am I going to set when I walk in here with my attitude, with my facial expressions? Because I am absolutely scrutinizing the body language and the facial expressions and the tone of everyone in the room to learn everything I need to know about them. And we would have 10, how this works. We'd have 10 guys from a company in there, and they're listening to what I'm saying, and 9 of them are leaning forward like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. It could save us all this money and all the stuff's going to be great. But one guy is sitting there like this. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, oh, you're in procurement, aren't you? Okay, you're the one I have to convert. Yeah. So then I'm going to make it a thing to make him my best friend. Sure. And figure out how do we bring him over? Because he's threatened by something. What is he threatened by? How do I solve that? Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. So when you bring in that energy and that affection kind of energy, what are some of the things that you would tell yourself
or that you do tell yourself to prepare yourself for those moments when you can wait. And you know, we all have like one-liners or things that we tell ourselves, right? And I kind of mentioned this before we started recording. One of mine is, I feel like it's my job to receive and then share. And so for me, that reminds me of my relationship to God, and that He's blessing me. And the more I'm open to receiving from Him, the more He'll give me so I can share. It's this beautiful relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's my purpose, is to
Yeah.
receive and share. What are some of the phrases that you have found are like your touchstones, your anchor sayings that power Missy?
Yeah, so one of the ones that I didn't have until I went through the hardest period of my life, where not only was I fighting cancer, my mother was dying of cancer, and my stepdad died unexpectedly, and my son's facing prison. During that time, I started to tell myself the only way out is through.
The Alanis Morissette song.
Well, also, God did not take the Israelites around or over the Red Sea.
Okay, so
He
she
took
got it
them
from God.
through it, right? He
Yeah.
took them through.
Yes.
And that's
yeah.
a lot of times, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Amen.
They had to go through the fire
Yes.
to get saved.
Yes.
And so, like, the only way out is through.
I love that.
And so, what are you going to teach me from this, God? You must have allowed this in my life for a reason. I want to receive that reason. I want to know why is this here? Because you always have a purpose. There's always some reason why God allows things to happen in your life.
Yes.
And, I don't think that God causes pain, but He allows things to happen. He doesn't allow everything to happen, right? I don't even know how many times God's not allowed me to be in a car accident,
Right.
right? I mean, there's lots of pain that God hasn't allowed in my life, and for that I'm very grateful. Like, my cancer was caught early, so I had a really good fighting chance. So the only way out is through.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and I've also thought several times, I just have to get through the next 5 minutes. And that's a very powerful phrase for the people that are behind bars.
Oh.
I just have to get through the next 5 minutes. I have zero control over anything else.
Yeah.
I only have control over my responses in the next 5 minutes.
It's amazing you say that, because, and I agree with you. You start to hear these sayings as you're going through these moments of darkness or hell, right? These difficulties. I don't know if I told you this story, but about 2 months ago, I had septum surgery. And then a week after the surgery, I sneezed.
Ooh.
And I just bled for 5
Oh my
straight. And I just
gosh.
drank my blood all night long.
Oy.
And my father-in-law, who's an anesthesiologist, ENT guy, he's like, Sam, you can do this for 2 weeks. You're not going to die. Because I couldn't see the doctor for 3 or 4 days.
Oh, man.
And I kept telling myself that I just have to go just this little bit longer, just a little bit longer. And it was a great immediate biofeedback lesson. Like, because if I got stressed out, I would bleed more. I got to a point where I was bleeding out of my eyes because I was so stressed out. But it was the best experience, because pain and discomfort is the most valuable teacher. But it's those moments when you can finally start to hear Him teaching you what you're supposed to learn. So what was something you learned when you were going through cancer yourself? I mean, that must have been a very difficult experience.
It was really hard. I mean, it was really hard having surgery and then radiation. And I didn't have to go through chemo, thankfully, because they caught it fairly early. But the surgery was a double mastectomy. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to go through physically. And radiation was terrible. It was 33 rounds. And it's basically, you get the worst sunburn of your life. And then the next day you go get another worst sunburn of your life on top of the one you just got for 33 times in a row.
Can't imagine.
And, I've got scars from that. And, it was really rough. And so what I learned during that time, I memorized Psalm 23. And I would say it out loud from start to finish, the entire psalm, over and over again while I was getting radiation. And I learned the power of God's word, the power of engraving it in your brain. Because when you say those words out loud, you are invoking that power that comes from those words that are in the Bible. And that gave me the strength that I needed to drive down there, get back up on that table and let them burn me again. I mean, it's mentally really challenging. One of my favorite Bible verses is "Be strong and courageous," which I have tattooed on my arm. I got that Bible verse 2 weeks before I found out I had cancer. Not knowing that I was going to need to look at that every day.
He was preparing you.
He was absolutely preparing me to go through that. One answer I don't have is why did I have to have cancer at the same time as my mom?
I remember.
Like, that was hard, and I never told her because she was dying and she was on a lot of drugs, and I mean, I was literally putting her into hospice when we found out that I had cancer too.
Wow. Do you think it was because you normally would have gone to her for comfort?
Right, but she couldn't, and it would have destroyed her to know that she was leaving me with that to face.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't do that to her.
Did it make you rely on God even more?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely it did. And so I just said, "Okay, God, you're gonna have to get me through this." Because we'd had so many things happen at the same time, I never felt like I had a moment to rest and like just and grieve over one thing. I keep having multiple things. When our son was arrested, he's being charged with murder. We knew whatever happened, he's not coming home for a long time, maybe ever. We don't know what's gonna happen at this point. And so I talked to my therapist about it. I said, I feel this crazy sense of loss. But he's not dead, but he's gone. He's gone from our lives for God knows how long, but he's not dead. I feel crazy. I don't know what to do with this. And she said, there's a term for it. It's called ambiguous loss. When you have a loss, but with someone who's not dead. So imagine a parent whose child is missing. Not dead necessarily, but gone.
Yeah.
How do you process that?
Yeah.
Or the flip side could be you have an Alzheimer's parent that you're caring for where they are mentally gone. You've lost them, but they're still physically present and you can't grieve the loss yet.
Yeah.
So I was tortured by questions like, okay, it's about to be Christmas time. Do we hang up his stocking? What's going to hurt worse?
Yeah.
Not seeing it or seeing it? Just things like that. So that on top of my mom's also dying of cancer. While she's going through treatment, my stepdad, who was taking care of her, died mysteriously. We don't know. We think maybe a pulmonary embolism maybe, but was in perfect health as far as we knew.
Wow.
So now she's alone. My brother and I have to step up helping to take care of her. And meanwhile, we're selling Switch.
Yeah, I remember that.
During the middle of all of this, we're going through this massive acquisition process. And so it was a lot to handle. So I asked if I could postpone my treatment until after my mom died. Did we catch it early enough that I have a little bit of time? And they said yes. So she finally passed in April. We laid her to rest. We announced the sale of Switch on May 11th. And then May 18th, I went out to have my surgery. And I told everybody, don't call me. In fact, shut off my emails. Like, I got to go deal with all of this stuff. And of course, Rob, our CEO, is great. He's like, no, go ahead. Because he knew everything that was going on. He was take all the time you need. So I had my surgery, and then 3 weeks later, I got the drains out, and my husband took me up to our cabin in Utah, and I sat there on the back porch for about a month, just shell-shocked. Yeah. And I would read my Bible, and I would listen to the wind in the treetops and watch the birds and the deer go by and just like kind of commune with God and nature and just grieve and rest. But I realized later that I had never truly taken time off to rest in my life. I think we can all agree family vacations are not rest.
No.
Right?
No, they're performance mode.
That's right. You got to go and do and be and, you want to experience everything.
Yeah.
Get the photos,
Create the memories.
But rest is something completely different. And it was so healing for me to actually finally rest that I was like, okay, I'm never giving that up again. My ability to go do that.
Well, and I love that. And that's a good reminder for all of us. And there's this idea of, the book of Lamentations. I think a lot of us skip over that in the Bible. And there's this Jewish tradition I recently learned about that Lamentations were meant to be sung. Mm-hmm. Because there's something about this idea that when you sing sorrow to God, you can hear him singing it back with you.
Yeah, it's called lament.
Yeah.
And lament is something that's sadly missing from most churches. We do a lot of praise and worship and God, you're awesome and happy, happy, joy.
And that's great.
But there's also so much in the world that we should be lamenting as well. Yeah. And lamenting is basically challenging God and saying, God is not supposed to be this way. Yeah. When I see some of the injustices and hear some of the stories of these women and men behind bars, it drives me to my knees in lament because I'm going, how long, oh Lord? Like, this is wrong. Yeah. That so much of our country is just totally okay with treating millions of people like this in our own country. It's not supposed to be this way. Show me how to change it. And then occasionally I can get overwhelmed with the just the massive amount of problems, the vast magnitude of injustices. And it gives me compassion fatigue. Where I go, I can't fix this.
So what do you do?
And I recognize that that's the enemy.
And that's fair. I think that's true.
I recognize that that's absolutely the enemy trying to discourage me from taking another step.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, Lord, No one, and this is another phrase, this is that I use a
Yeah,
lot.
great.
No one can change the world, but everyone can do something.
Mm.
Everyone has their part to play. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has been given gifts and talents. And so what is your role to play?
Yes.
And so God, I can only play the part that you've given me to play. And I can't save everybody else. Like, for instance, I don't work with child sex predators. You know, people who've been convicted of sex crimes. I'm not called to that. And I don't have as many degrees as I think you need to have to do that kind of work.
No.
They need very specialized help.
And it's very toxic. It affects the people.
All those things. But
Yes.
some people are totally called to that, which is great. Now, I'm called to prison ministry. Not everyone is. It is not for everyone. I'm trying to build up a little volunteer base right now to help me, but I need people who have had a lot of therapy.
Sure.
Like, you have to have dealt with your own junk before you go in there.
Yeah.
I always say I wouldn't send a burning person into a fire to save other people who are on fire.
Yeah.
Put out your own flames, heal from your burns, then you can go and do that work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful.
Because they dump a lot of trauma on you.
Oh.
And it can be overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, carrying the weight of their stories and the fact that you can't change it.
Mm-mm.
You know, one woman told me that she was in a horrifically abusive relationship with a man and she couldn't escape from him for years. And then one day she found out he had been raping her daughter, so she shot him to death. And she's not sorry, but she's lost her daughter. Right? She's in prison because she shot the guy. And okay, well, yeah, but her situation, you go, oh, how do I fix that? I can't fix that, you know? And so those types of things are things we should lament as a church. But the book I'm writing is going to be a call to action for the church, because I think church with a capital C, right? The church at large, for the most part, ignores Matthew 25, where it says, when you visit someone in prison, you visit me. Okay. Jesus said when he read in Isaiah what the Messiah would do, one of them was proclaim freedom to the captives, right?
Set at liberty.
Yes. And so I go, well, we're all real comfortable helping the widows and the orphans, but what about the inmates? Are they not deserving of our help as well?
Yeah.
Right? And you don't have to help them while they're in prison if that's not your thing. Help them before they get to prison. Intervene.
Sure.
Help organizations like Olive Crest who help kids who are aging out of foster care, right? Work with Boys and Girls Club. Like, there's all these different ways where you can help. Like that at-risk the kid who grew up in meth houses. Where was the church? Like, why didn't someone from the church somehow find this kid and get him out of there? You know, not that the church can do everything, but there's millions of us. If we mobilized as a force, what couldn't we do, right? If the church all got together and decided to make changes like this. And so, you know, helping them say, also, okay, if it's not that and it's not while they're in prison, then how about after they get out? Are you in a position to hire someone? Give a felon a chance.
Yeah.
Get them off the streets. Be the one who makes the difference.
Well, it's the classic Jean Valjean story, right? That the priest who gives him the candlesticks and Les Mis. That it's that who's going to extend that grace.
Yeah. And so there's 3 different times you can help somebody: before they get to prison, while they're in prison, and after they get out. And so how will you do that? You know, to examine your own life, your own gifts, your own talents. And if you run a church, if you lead a church, how can you mobilize your congregation to not be lukewarm and instead to go and be the hands and feet of Jesus in the world?
That's it.
That's all we're called to do.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you these 3 last questions. So, and if you can articulate these in a sentence or 2, just to kind of help people understand that force of it. What's your why? What do you believe? And what are you doing right now to create light?
So what's my why? When I die and come face to face with Jesus, I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. That's what I want to hear.
I have no doubt you'll hear that, Missy.
Well, I just, you know, that's my goal. That's my why. That's what I want. You know, I want to serve him well. And then what do I believe? I believe that Jesus is the way and the truth and the light, and that no one comes to the Father but through him. And that he is my savior, and that he is the reason that I can do the things that I can do. And so I'm going to spend the rest of my life being as obedient of a daughter as I can. Yeah. So, and then the third one was, how am I bringing light?
Yeah, what do you do to create light?
other than going into the jails and the prisons.
No, you
That's
kind of already answered
that's
that.
kind of what I do. But one of the things that I do with the inmates is I get them to sing. And
Really?
so there's one of my favorite songs is by Andy Grammer. It's called "Don't Give Up on Me."
Oh, I love Andy Grammer.
So I pass out the lyrics
Yeah.
and I bring my Bluetooth speaker and I play that song and I have them sing with me at the top of their lungs. And I tell them, if you can't sing, sing louder. I even get the guys to do it. And I recently had one of my former class students in my class who's now out of jail. He sent me a video of him inside a Del Taco, and on the radio was that song, "Don't Give Up on Me," and he filmed himself like kind of bebopping along and singing to the lyrics because he remembered it.
Yeah.
And he texted me, he said, "You have no idea what that song meant to me at the time." And so when you sing, it actually calms your nervous system, makes you feel happy.
Yeah, it fills your body.
Singing is, yeah. And so at the end of it, I said, "How do you feel?" Every time we sing, I go, "How do you feel?" And they're like, That feels good. I feel good."
Yeah.
They're laughing and they're happy. And I said, "You all just brought light into a dark place with your own
I
voice."
love that. I
You know?
love that.
And so it's not just me bringing the light, but it's showing them how they can also bring in the light themselves. And I always tell them that they're loved by God. I also run a Bible study in my home for women every Monday night. It's got about 65 women in there. And
I've secretly wanted to go several times.
and unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Annalise can come though.
She
I'd
could.
love to have her.
She should. She
So-
she just got her counseling degree, and she's like, I love talking about pornography because she's go for helping people who are addicted to pornography.
Got it.
But that's so cool you do that.
Yeah.
On this singing thing though, so like you that is probably the coolest answer I think I've gotten so far. Is that you help people sing.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I help them get in touch with that part of them that still can bring light. You know, because we all have it. God put it there.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, I have a gift we give to everybody.
Oh,
This is a little lightsaber
nice.
that is a symbol of how you generate light, because I believe every human can, as you do good, you become a human lightsaber.
Nice.
You fill with light. And so this is a pink one that lights up. There you go.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's great.
Thanks for being a human lightsaber and bringing light to so many people. And if Dan wants one, we have a blue one too.
That's great.
And there's a little cap on it.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. But thanks for being you, and thanks for for spreading light. You're such an example, and it's such a blessing for me to be able to know you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, Sam. I've treasured your friendship ever since I met you.
Oh, thanks, Missy.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.